The Comic Binge presents a sub-series dedicated to one of the most divisive and imaginative mainstream comic book runs ever created with an iconic character. This is Knights Never Die, Grant Morrison's Batman, issue by issue. Tonight, we continue with Act 1 of our journey, Knight versus Clow. Welcome back to Knights Never Die, Grant Morrison's Batman issue by issue. I am Comic Binge co-host Chris Clow, and I'm very pleased to be back to bring you the second part of perhaps the defining, or at least one of the defining stories of this run, Batman R.I.P. And I'm thrilled once again to be joined by my very good friends, first partner in crime fighting, from The Flash up to speed with Wally West and the 007 files, reviewer extraordinaire at Batman on Film, a lot of other things. Just Google his name and I'm sure you'll find them, Mr. Javi Trujillo. How are you, my friend?
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I was staring lovingly at this brand new absolute Batman R.I.P. edition that arrived last week, and just how the Alex Ross cover from last issue fades away to become a Tony Daniel R Batman, and it's a thing of beauty, and it's hard to put it down.
Oh yeah, an oversight. Well, not an oversight, a tactical retreat, you might say, but something I need to correct very soon. And of course, fellow, there I'm specifying, fellow Comic Binge founding father, Mr. Paul Hermann, the P Thug. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, El Corazon. I'm doing well. Still reeling from, I don't know if you guys saw the comments, a comment recently, but on our last video, someone said, my mom asked me, who's the old guy in the bottom left corner? And that old guy would have been me. So I was rough. It was rough.
I mean, I always feel like you're middle-aged, right?
I mean, I think,
Chris is the youngest. I'm the oldest. So you're middle-aged.
Yeah. I'm the middle child. I'm always the middle child. But I was rough. Not gonna lie. Whoever that mom was, you're brutal. I think I look good for my age, but as the years have gone on, at being 44, it feels I definitely have aged a lot more in my face in the last couple of years. So, Andreas, it was good seeing you today. Andreas, I need to get Andreas on the show sometime. He's a great guy. What's that?
I said I want to know what the Omni was that he got today.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he'll tell you. He always trying to tell me an omnibus.
Tell us what it is, and we'll have to do a show on omnis. Just
I should. Yeah. Wait. Was that Andreas? Was that you at the comment? No, it wasn't you at the comment on there. No, it wasn't somebody. It was somebody
Animal
else.
Man,
but
okay, yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, respect. I was telling him that Tom did Dark Empire for Dark Horse.
Yep. Yeah.
And
did he do Dark Empire 2 also, or just the first one?
He did all three. I think.
What's the third one?
The Empire's End. I think it's Empire's End. What's called?
Oh, okay.
It's like only a 2-issue mini. But him and Ken Kennedy both did the Dark Empire, but they also did like a science fiction war comic. 65 omnibuses.
Crazy.
I think that's more.
Whenever you move out of your parents' house, homie, you're gonna hate your life. No, that's all I
build
gotta
a
say.
fort with that.
Just use small boxes, and as small as you can, and lift with your legs. That's all I'll say.
But yeah, no, things are good. I've got prep for the next couple of weeks, months. Obviously, next week we got Earth 1.
Yep.
So, and then I don't have it next to me, but we got other books. But this was in a couple months. This will be consumed as well, obviously, for obvious reasons. So, I'm just getting kind of everything in order here. I've got obviously R.I.P. which was so great, generously donated to me by the Reverend himself. So that's true. That is true. Yeah, Andreas, Ever Comics and Cards, fantastic place. Love that. Love that comic store. I'm very blessed to have that as my local shop that I can go to. So
I must have met him at some point when I was in there with you. Maybe.
Yeah, he's a
Maybe.
young guy with curly black hair. I don't want to try to call you out there, Andreas, but
Andreas
has good taste in music. Yeah.
No,
it's all good.
Dude.
Yeah.
Good dude. We'll do an Omnis episode.
Good dude.
Just for the record, Paul, you do look good for your age. You know, you're not even old.
I appreciate that.
So
I don't think I'm old.
Like when you're older than someone else in a photo, you're gonna look older than that person, right? It's just a comparative thing.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you've gone on a hell of a journey yourself, particularly in transformation. People who know you know, and that's to be commended.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. I appreciate
that. Well, gentlemen, let's not belabor it too much more, because today we are going to be diving into Batman Volume 1, number 677, released on May 28th in 2008 with a cover date of July. You might recall that the last issue we discussed, the first issue of R.I.P, was released only 2 weeks before this one. That was on May 14th. Scheduling issues are going to abound for Mr. Morrison's titles outside of Batman primarily, but some of the significance here comes from timing, because May 28th was the same day that saw the release of none other than Final Crisis number 1. This issue and Final Crisis number 1 both dropped on the same day, but beyond those, another major Morrison issue released on this day, so it was a good day for Grant Morrison written superhero fans. May 28th also saw the release of All-Star Superman number 11, the penultimate and consistently heavily delayed chapter of the story that now has pretty legendary status among modern Superman stories. I think it's pretty safe to say, especially after the movie last year and how much pushing DC did, justifiably so, for its felt influence. But this was a good day to be a DC Comics fan, particularly if you were a fan of Grant Morrison. I remember this day reasonably well, actually, despite having been nearly 20 years ago, working at the comics place up in Bellingham, Washington. I was all in, ready for Final Crisis, but it was sort of like what I described about Batman 676. You spend so much time pining for that number 1, and as someone who was, well, it was Andre's age. I was 20 when this came out. I was thinking more questions would be answered, and I should have known better. But that was still a pretty solid issue, as you will find out in a future episode of Knights Never Die, because we are not shying away from Final Crisis. No, we're actually going pretty deep into the event, because it is a very important part of the larger Morrison Batman narrative. But the issue we're talking about today, you can see the standard cover on the screen by Mr. Alex Ross. It was, of course, written by Grant Morrison with pencils by Tony Daniel, inks by Sandu Florea, and colors by Guy Major. The primary cover was by Alex Ross, and there was also a 1 in 25 variant cover by Daniel and the primary artistic team. I really like these Tony Daniel covers. I mean, you guys know all about I think that's his second print. They changed the colors a little bit, but I mean, you guys know about my fixation on the Tony Daniel cover for number 676, largely because until this Absolute edition, we found out, thank you, Javi, it hadn't really ever been reproduced in high resolution in any other collected edition, which frustrated me because I thought it was a great cover. And this one is kind of similar in that vein, but also very solid. If I had to pick a favorite, it would we got it right here. There is the 676 cover, the Tony Daniel version in beautiful Absolute format. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I probably will give the standard cover the edge only because, from what I understand, and Javi, they might even have photos of this. It was initially sketched out by Grant Morrison. The concept of Batman's face being torn apart and within the tear is Bruce and Jezebel kissing in the light of the sun.
This is all the.
That's all the back matter.
That's all the back matter.
Wow.
So
that's great. Yep. I'm gotta do that. Gotta do that as soon as possible. But let's start as we usually do. Let's not delve into the plot details just yet. Let's just give our high level impressions of Batman R.I.P. Chapter 2. Paul, I assume you read this one pretty recently in comparison to at least Javi and I.
Today.
All right. What'd you make of it? You're fresh.
Yeah. I think this issue is it's making me it's funny because I avoid spoilers and you guys know more than I do, obviously. I'm starting to like get hints of what whenever you get like a character you don't see or hasn't stayed in the what's the word I'm looking for? Stayed in the limelight of Batman comic books, or you don't really hear about them talked about amongst, like, especially with you guys outside of this run. Probably you think that there's more to them and what they're involved in with the current with this current storyline you're reading. And with that, it definitely feels like Jez, is he called her Jet or Jez? I always forget. Was he?
In this issue, he goes for both. Her name is Jezebel Jet. At one point, he does refer to her as Jet.
Yeah, it threw me off. I'm like, wait. Yeah, I was like, what, Jet? I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so,
that's her last name.
So without knowing what goes on how she's talking, it feels like she's involved in the Black Glove. I feel also because I feel like the mystery aspect is really like going to another level here. And I really like that. And one of the things I wish, looking back at this, knowing the Black Case book, it feels like the Black Case book. I feel one of the things that of reading this and knowing the importance of it, I feel like Morrison should have actually leaned a little heavier in emphasizing the Black Case book. It feels like in his run so far, because it feels like it's not as it was heavily talked about in this issue, and it's like its importance, I feel, in this issue was kind of finally met here. So yeah, like I just kind of it's like it was not the most like the ending that with saying the ending. It feels like this issue wasn't like a whole jaw dropper. It wasn't like, but it feels like the mystery is starting to get unraveled more, and I like that. And it feels like this is what Grant Morrison is, despite my one little like minor like complaint so far of his run, which is very minor. It does feel like this run is finally starting to I just love the mystery kind of unfolding, and he's doing a great job of unfolding it the right way. Again, I'm getting a lot of Twin Peaks vibes in this. Like I keep saying that, but it, one thing that, and the reason why is because David Lynch is so good about unraveling a weird mystery, whether it be in, I haven't seen Mulholland Drive, but that movie, or like if you watch, Lost Highway. A lot of his movies are based around weird plots and mystery. Twin Peaks obviously is all based around a mystery, and goes extra weird with it. So it feels like we're peeling back more, but there's more mystery involved with it. So yeah, I really like this aspect. And by the way, I actually prefer the other covers to this. I don't really like this cover. And maybe it's not, I like the idea of it, but like the execution by Ross, not my favorite. So anyway,
you just got to be a contrarian with everything. That's all, Paul the Contrarian Herman. Paul Contrarman. That's you.
What?
But
Why do you why do you call me a contrarian? I'm there. I love being a part of the party.
part of the
What are you
crowd.
what are
See,
you talking
even
about?
that is a backhanded way of like, see, I'm cool. So
I'm just trying to be Jezebel right now to Bruce. I feel like
right,
she's like,
yeah,
she's
right.
just like, oh, but Bruce, maybe you're the black glove, Bruce. Maybe have you ever considered this little
We'll get
little
to
implant? I'm just
that.
like,
We'll get to it.
I'm just like,
I actually,
child, please.
Javi, before I ask you your impressions of the issue, I had a different on this page specifically. This red bird looks unfamiliar to me, but that is the red bird, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's a red bird.
I don't think I've seen a design quite like it's very Porsche, I guess. I always thought the red bird was a little
Yeah.
more boxy, but
More
maybe
Lamborghini-ish.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a Tom Grummett
Yeah.
Redbird guy. Like that's my jam, dude. That
Sure.
by the way, when I was a kid and getting his own new nickname. What are you talking about, Holmes?
Paul
Contrarian.
God. Oh yeah. Andreas, I don't care about cars. You know this. No, but the Redbird is like from that era. Like when I was a kid, I was like, genius. Why didn't we think about giving Robin his own car in the first place ever? Like it was like, this is awesome.
He wasn't old
I love
enough.
this idea. Well, I know, but like it was cool to get like instead of the Batmobile, like the Robinmobile.
He got his
Redbird.
own.
That was brilliant. Yeah, that was a cool take. Which I didn't even think about this being a Redbird. That's awesome. Good call. Good on you, Chris.
Well, no, I just like Javi. Have you seen it in a design like this? Maybe in the 21st century sometime, or do you think that might just be a take on it by Tony Daniel?
I feel like it's a take on it, but
sure,
because I don't really remember. But I kind of dropped off on Robin anyways at this point. Like I would kind of just peek in and out, so I'm not really sure if he had it or not.
No, I was deep into Robin at this time, and I never saw the car. Post 1 year later, up through the end of the title, I don't think he ever used it. He used it. He was using a bat cycle primarily. So yeah, just an aside, a bat side, you might say. Well, what do you make before we actually get into the plot? What did you make of R.I.P. Chapter 2?
Well, I appreciate you jogging my memory of Grant Morrison Day back 20 years ago, that these all came out at the same time. It's like, yeah, that would have been a Wednesday to have those 3 books. And I guess similar to you, Final Crisis #1 was not what I expected. All the hype that it came up with it and expectations, unfair expectations on my part, I would say. And it wasn't something, it was weird to me because I was like, Batman was hitting for me. And having read Morrison's JLA, I'm like, oh, this is going to be epic. It's the Final Crisis. And what we got, especially in the first half, was not what I was expecting it to be in that vein. And that's on me. But that aside, that first issue aside, and obviously my feelings have changed on it, but like this was a solid issue to me back then. Like you started to feel things coming together, and I like the paranoia that Jezebel gives to Bruce, and raises that question. And I thought that was a unique twist of the knife, to think that maybe he is his own worst enemy, and this is all in his head. And it's a fun thing to play with, especially as we get deeper into his psyche in the next couple of chapters. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were some shocking moments that I recall, particularly when we come to the Wayne parentage, that it's like, what's going on here? But then there were lots of golden age, silver age shout outs to continuity that Morrison loves to do in this run. Like Alfred's stage name of Alfred Beagle, which isn't something that really got brought up a whole bunch in this modern era. But even like going through the Batcave and seeing obviously Jason's bloodied costume, we've also got his pre-crisis Robin costume on the right, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a fun, solid issue. And like I said, the paranoia just kind of ramps everything up to the satisfying conclusion. I mean, it was another hit for me, even back then.
Yeah, and I like that you point out the pre-crisis Robin costume there, because that's just another indication of what the consequences of Infinite Crisis were, or the scale of Infinite Crisis and how it impacted DCU continuity. I do have a minor correction to what I said before. So May 28th, yes, that was a Wednesday, and that was technically the release day of all of these books. But Memorial Day fell on May 26th. So at least in my shop, we got the books on the following day, on the Thursday, the 29th. So just maybe that's pedantic, but pedantry is kind of my thing when it comes to some.
You
of
even
these
have a
details.
theme song for it on another podcast.
I do. Maybe I'll have to port that over to the Comic Binge one of these days if we want to get into pedantic continuity time. But
which I'm still convinced it's Rachel and not you singing it, but that's okay.
You and Kyle Sullivan both don't seem to think that's me, but I'll play it for Paul one of these days and see what he thinks.
Or you could just listen to Discovery Debrief wherever you get your fine podcasts.
We mustn't expect miracles now, but that's Paul doesn't like the sound of my voice. He don't like the sound of my voice.
That's not true. I just don't like Star Trek. You know this.
There he goes being contrarian again.
Yeah, right. Well, excellent. Well, so the main event here, Batman in the Underworld and Batman number 677. Solicitation is as follows, distributed by DC in March of 2008. Continuing Batman R.I.P., the epic story that will change the legend of the Dark Knight forever. As the life of Bruce Wayne takes an interesting turn with Jezebel Jet, the life of Batman falls into the ultimate downward spiral. And that's the end. I think the writers of the DC solicitations were not too keen on sharing plot details if they could help it. And it's a pretty Spartan plot synopsis here. So let's go a little bit deeper with a quick and dirty recap written by yours truly. In the sewers of Gotham, Batman beats a demon-hooded thug and demands to know what he knows about the Black Glove. Commissioner Gordon and a couple of officers soon join him, and they speculate about who the Black Glove could be. Gordon mentions that all he could find was an old movie with that as its title. In the Batcave, Batman is attempting to put the pieces together with Alfred's help, but has a strange distance about him. Alfred insists on cleaning a fresh wound before it gets infected, but Bruce isn't listening. He asks where Tim is when Alfred explains that Robin has been through a lot and left days ago. Batman instructs Alfred to go see the Black Glove movie at a revival house. Meanwhile, the assembled villains of the Black Glove itself, led by Dr. Simon Hurt, conspire to destroy Batman. Hurt claims he knows Batman better than anyone, that he is defined by a deeply seated weakness rooted in insecurity, and says that soon a trigger he implanted in him years ago will be flipped. At the mayor's office, Commissioner Gordon is incensed by new anonymous information claiming that Thomas and Martha Wayne are key players in a sordid story of Gotham's past, where Thomas kept secret a brutal, profane nature reliant on alcohol and drugs. Gordon tries to stand up for the Waynes and Alfred, but the mayor reminds Gordon that Alfred is an actor. The mayor shows photos to Gordon allegedly showing Thomas Wayne with John Mayhew and Mangrove Pierce alongside a strung-out, intoxicated Martha. The mayor also says that Martha's family claimed that Thomas had Martha killed and faked his own death, suggesting that Bruce's father could still be alive. Batman brings Jezebel Jet to the Batcave, who is overwhelmed by its magnitude. Batman tries to advise Jet to stay away from him until he resolves the situation with the Black Glove, but Jet instead explains that she is worried for Bruce's sanity ever since she learned he is Batman. As someone jumps out of a plane descending on Wayne Manor, Bruce asks to show Jet one final clue that will prove he is onto something. The Bat computer has been crunching numbers and scenes to discern patterns from data across the city, but Bruce is troubled because all he sees is static. But Jezebel can see what the computer is showing him. He asks what she sees, and she replies, just a nonsense word. Zuranar. Bruce collapses, lamenting that he is not ready, as he starts convulsing in her arms. The Black Glove closes in on them in the cave. Alfred returns as he sees the cave burning, but the minions of the Black Glove begin beating him mercilessly. So my general perspective on this issue is that it raised my blood pressure the first time that I read it. I feel like in terms of 21st century Batman storytelling, this is really the first domino to fall with an idea that would be exploited differently in stories like Earth One or The Batman, that there is like an unknown underbelly to the legacy of Bruce's family. And
what was the Telltale game called?
Well, there's Batman the Telltale series, and then the Shadows Within, the second one. And then Earth One kind of opened the floodgates, but I feel like this started to crack the door open a little bit in that direction. And I honestly, like, it deeply disturbed me, like, this is, 20-year-old kid, I'm sure that's part of it, but the idea that there is an underbelly to this family that, the stories I've been reading for virtually my entire life up to that point were about the virtuousness of the Waynes and the positive contributions that they had to Gotham's history, and the baseline that they gave to Bruce so that he better understood how to execute on his philanthropy. And then here comes this story that purports to take really kind of a key foundational element of Batman's identity away, and it's something that would be exploited differently over on the Superman side of things. But, sometimes Batman blazes the trail first. And this, I feel like, may have been a contributor to that. Obviously, things will go the way that they go in this story, and we'll get there when we get there. But in the moment, this was a deeply unnerving reading experience for me, but that also did make it very engaging. It didn't turn me off of the story. If anything, it just made me more interested in how this was going to play out. And if this was something that Bruce was going to be able to recover from. The potential certainly seemed there after reading this issue for that line that, appears in so many comic book solicitations that nothing is ever going to be the same after this. That felt plausible here in a way that it often doesn't, even now. So between the rug getting pulled out from underneath everybody in this was also around the same time that the Sinestro Corps War started over in the Green Lantern titles. And I was deeply invested. Well, this was about a year after that, but that was summer of 2007, I think, was when the Sinestro Corps special.
I thought that was before Final Crisis.
It was, yeah. But that time, like, the storytelling felt dangerous in a way that I was unaccustomed to as a relatively young reader, I suppose. But it also just felt harsher, and leading up to it felt like everything was leading to a crescendo in Final Crisis in a way that maybe other events did not have that kind of current going into them. So I was hooked, even if I was unnerved by this one. But what do you guys make of some of the specifics of the plot, Paul? You probably came at it. I can't speak for you, of course, but I'm guessing you came at this from a more seasoned and skeptical point of view about, like, you've read some of these other stories. Did this seem like it had a bite to you, or did it seem tame?
It's hard knowing like where it's going to go, right? I was surprised that they showed up so quick, to be quite honest, in R.I.P. So that was kind of, the very end. Again, a lot of this, I was more surprised by the peeling back some of the mysteries and more mysteries on kind of coming into light by the story. And yeah, like this was very interesting. I'm like, oh geez, okay. And I know that this is what's nice is it's at this point, I feel like the Waynes haven't been almost untouched, by like the for the most part. Does that make sense? And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because but I generally think that in the comics, the Waynes were left alone as being pretty pure at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, but like I don't think a lot of writers have messed with that aspect. Am I right about that?
To my recollection, you are. Yeah.
Up to this point, I know it's been more obviously because of Jeff Johns and now Grant Morrison kind of, I think now famously, it looks like, has started implementing this a little bit. I think that this is something very interesting that he did. And, I guess maybe Hush opened the door for a second, like they implied, but they found out that was all fake kind of a thing. I guess Jeff Loeb maybe did a little bit of that in Hush, because they insinuated that Tommy, because then they insinuate Tommy's his brother. No,
Tommy was his best friend and was jealous of Bruce having no parents after the Waynes got killed. So he arranged for his own parents to be killed, but there was never any insinuation that Tommy was like his secret brother. There was I
swear that was.
Are you thinking of Court of Owls? Because Court of Owls brought up that he did have a brother from.
Okay. I'm getting those confused.
Silver Age story, and he like had to go to a mental hospital or something when he was young, and they had to keep him out of the public eye, kind of thing.
Okay, so yeah, never mind. I digress. I apologize. Thank you. I knew this is more modern, I would say. This whole what's messed with the Waynes, like, family. So that was surprising, and seeing it here, I'm like, oh, like, so it's cool in retrospect to know how not say groundbreaking, but how pioneering, I would say, maybe this kind of concept was for Grant. So again, Grant Morrison doing pioneering, who would have thought? Right. But yeah, like I just reading this, it was just really cool to see again the layering back, peeling back some of those layers of the mysteries and more mysteries showing up. And at the very end, I have to say, like, I think this is all coincidental, but I gotta say, I had total vibes of Avengers Mansion being raided by the Masters of Evil, and like Mr. Hyde like almost killing Jarvis with this whole like thing. So again, I don't think Grant Morrison's even like acknowledging a influence or anything. I think it's all like just coincidental, but I couldn't help but feel like the Assault on Avengers Mansion run, which I love that story so much. One of my favorite Avengers stories of all time, where the Masters of Evil invade Avengers Mansion and almost kill Jarvis. So this is almost like give me complete flashbacks to that. So we'll see. Yeah, I think it was a interesting issue. It wasn't like captivating, but it definitely was interesting. I mean, I've yet, besides the crappy prose story, to not like one of these issues. So yeah, I'm into it.
Do you think you'll like that crappy, in your words, prose story when I get you the compact comics edition? It's more in a novel size, like it's more like a print book. Will that make it better?
No.
Okay. No.
Sorry.
No. Anyway, once he decides he hates something, he hates it forever. And
that's not true.
Incapable
that's not true.
Of growth beyond an initial
whatever, dude. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Well, thank you. All right, Javi, jumping off of that, interesting but not captivating That was Paul's tagline here. Where do you fall in relation to that?
Oh no, I'm more on the captivating side, and
No,
touching.
really quick. That's why, Javi, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but reason why I'm not captivated is because I had the disadvantage of knowing
Right,
where it's
where some
going.
of
So
it's going.
yeah,
Yeah.
So please, anyway, I'll stop.
Paul hates omnis, so Compact
This is
Comics is the
true.
one he's gonna get. But to touch back on like something like this, where you're sullying the reputation of the Waynes, like that. I mean, that was a big deal. Because I think of all the heroes' parents who have died, whether it's necessarily or unnecessarily for the story, like looking at you, Allens, who didn't need to be killed for Barry to be a hero. Um, like I think it's important that Thomas and Martha do have like a sainthood to them uh, for Bruce's mission, and it's something that, like you said, Chris, like the door gets opened with this, where we start to see these other things creeping in, like Batman Damned, where Thomas is not a good man at all, but that's a black label story. It's not continuity. Um, Comparing it to something like James Gunn's Superman, where he believes his Kryptonian parents are one way and kind and benevolent, and that's the way we always see them. And in that movie, as far as we still know, like they didn't have humanity's best interests at heart, and that's like his conflict for that. Like having them not be perfect doesn't. I don't think it has the same impact as the Waynes, or if like Jonathan and Martha were crappy people, because they're the ones who influenced who Clark was. And I feel like, Bruce holds their memory in such a high regard that if he did find out, because everyone's human, finding out these truths would be really difficult for him. Even learning that his dad was a good man, but made a mistake in the Batman was, one of the obstacles he has to overcome. So this gray area that Morrison introduces here, it gave the story for me an edge to it. And there's just so many threads that we get introduced to, especially with the Black Glove and the film version of it, that and the detective that was looking into him who disappeared. Like it's such a throwaway line and you forget about it. And then, lo and behold, like a year later, it's going to be a pretty big deal. So stick around for the ride, because that's going to be an interesting thing to talk about when we get to that moment.
Definitely. And it's hard not to think about this time in particular and not tie it to this larger acceleration that was taking place in the DCU toward Final Crisis. Final Crisis #1, came out in the same day as this, as I pointed out before, but the Batman narrative in Final Crisis didn't quite align just yet. And Final Crisis #2 is really where things start moving in a very specific direction for Batman in that story, but R.I.P. still had to catch up. And then, Final Crisis had its own scheduling issues that necessitated different artistic teams to come in, kind of very similar to what happened over on Infinite Crisis. There were several artists that ultimately contributed to catch that book up when things fell behind. In addition to Phil Jimenez, you had George Perez contributing, Jerry Ordway, and Ivan Reis, and several other people to pick up the slack. Final Crisis never got that many artists involved, but it did need to sort of put its foot on the gas and get to the end, and because it would hold up several other books in the line, including Batman, and what we needed to see after that point. But all that to say that there is just this feeling of building to something that, even if Final Crisis doesn't have like a direct bearing on R.I.P. at this point, they're very spiritually tied. In addition to being written by the same creator, We didn't quite have all the pieces to understand how they fit together yet, but they do, which is much easier to see after the fact. But I certainly felt like there was something being built toward when I was going back and forth reading these books. The way that I have typically, I'm a pro wrestling fan, right? So the main event goes on last. That's the way that I always have my stack. The book I'm anticipating the most, I put at the bottom because it's the main event. So I can't remember if Final Crisis was last or if Batman was last, but one of those two books were last in my pile that week. And very different kind of vibes coming out of those, but I really did feel like there's something to this. Morrison's got something going on where these stories are going to sync up at some point, or they're going to be referential to each other, or something is going to happen. And that'll become clear in our later conversations when we actually do delve into the event. But this really did kind of an effective job of making it seem like the wheels were coming off of the wagon over there at Wayne Manor and in the Batcave. The world building up to this point that Morrison and his collaborators undertook to populate Gotham with these different kinds of personalities, like this is all paying off really well, even if we don't quite yet know how things are going to go down. But yeah, I mean, harrowing is the only real way I can describe my reading experience for this. It's just Zur-En-Arrh became, I guess, a more overt tool in the story, even though we had seen it before. And I don't think I clocked at the time, certainly in those early issues, the earliest issues of the run, what that meant. So it just kind of went over my head, as I think we talked about back in our discussion of 655 about 1,000 years ago. But no, this is just like classic build for story and for payoff. And at this stage, I wasn't sure if I was going to like the payoff, but the ride was certainly exciting. And the character depth is the thing that continuously jumps out at me. This, all things considered, is not that action-packed of an issue. It starts on action, but it's over very quickly. And it's always good to see Batman give a villain who deserves it a hard time. But
some good capage.
Very good capage, yeah. It's a good word. I always like that word. But once that's over with, it's a far more sort of contemplative character piece, because Bruce is meditating on the events that have happened up to this point. But also it's like, hey, here are these clues. We've put them in front of you. The visual of the black glove should be very evocative to people who remember the island of Mr. Mayhew. And, Mr. Mayhew himself is name dropped in this issue, as is Marsha Lamar, I think, is going to be, she's going to appear more overtly in the future, like even by like Return of Bruce Wayne timeline. And that's way further down, probably in like 2030 by the time we get to that. Right. But just the building here, it astonishes me, because not every creator can pull it off to this degree. And we're starting to see the pieces finally fall into place. And that I remember being really exciting.
What do you guys think of this panel here? Especially Bruce's dialogue of I'm not ready. Like, what kind of feelings does that conjure up when you see Batman in this state?
In the moment, the thing that it conjured up the most for me was just confusion, I guess. Bewilderment. Like, what is he not ready for? Why is he not ready? You don't often hear the words "I'm not ready" from Bruce Wayne. He's ready for everything. So if he's confronted with something that he's not ready for, that automatically, at least for me, kicks it up into far more dangerous territory than it was a couple of pages ago. So that I remember being very like deeply unsettling when I got to this point, because it's like, wait a second, he doesn't know how to put those three words together most of the time. And he's kind of freaking out. Like, that's another thing too, is like Batman's emotional regulation is legendary. And the fact that he's losing that, going from that stoicism that we're so used to something approaching manic concern, that's also unsettling. Like everything about that is unsettling, at least to me. We did lose Paul. It sounds like Paul is having some technical difficulties, so I'm sure he'll be back if he can. How did it strike you?
I mean, this is Grant Morrison's Batman. This is the guy whose Batman in JLA is referred to as the Bat God, the one who figured out the White Martian attack and took them down with a matchstick, So, like, to go from that, where he's got a plan for everything and he's 5 moves ahead, to go to this panic state of I'm not ready. Like, I don't want to say it struck fear in my heart, because that sounds really dramatic for a comic book story, but like it does, elicit like a response of like, oh shit, this is a big thing. Like, the threat that they're presenting of what Batman's going through is potentially catastrophic, and in a very different way than what we saw with Nightfall, where he was burnt out and just physically put through the ringer. There's still elements of that, but it's more subtle. It's something Morrison mentions every now and then, as we look back on, Face to Face and all the other stories leading up to this, and 52, and how all that played into where he is, and Robin questioning his mentation in the last issue. Like, all of that kind of builds up in the background to where we get to this moment. And it's such a contrast from the confidence that we saw in the DC Universe Zero issue, when he was meeting with the Joker and he's like, bring it on, to all of a sudden he's not ready,
Yeah, well said. And unnerving certainly strikes my mind. Paul, did you have any particular feelings about Batman infamously always prepared, always composed, expressing that he is neither ready nor composed when this demonic image comes up on his screen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I think that's really not subtle, but the very nuanced, I would say, thing that he put there is just, and I love the ellipsis before and after, is I'm not ready. Like, realizing that there's a psychological effect going in right now, and putting that there, you're putting the reader at like, oh, Batman, the man who's always prepared, not ready. What does this mean? Like, and knowing that like you've done so many issues building up to this like mystery that Batman's kind of frustrated he can't figure out, and like, so what exactly is, so Morrison's done a great job of building towards this, instead of just being like, hey, he's not ready, like, like out of nowhere, we can't do this, it's like it feels very earned at this point. I mean, like, because you have the emotional buildup of revealing the new son that he found out he has. You have the emotional buildup of like this new relationship. You have the emotional buildup of, like the island, and all the Batman characters that he's, dealing with, and that, and now you have the emotional
his other
weight.
son leaving.
Yeah. Thank you. Is gone. You have the buildup of the Black Glove on top of that, with this weird thing that's going on. It's like, it's just they're emphasizing that he's not like a young man. He's not old by any means. He's still in his 30s, but he is being weathered. And I think that is all emphasized to that moment, what makes a lot of sense. So I really liked that aspect of the story.
I'm just laughing at the caption on this panel where again there's an ellipsis. You're over 30 years old. It can't go on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
they only
spring
knew.
chicken at 32, maybe 33. I guess I always thought in the back of my head like 35. That seemed reasonable. I guess that still seems a little less reasonable now, but it still seems pretty reasonable. Lots of history there. You know, if you're conservatively estimating that he started at 22, you know, 13, 14 years seems like maybe enough to compress a floating timeline of post-crisis history in there for a full career. Possibly, yeah. But I mean, if you think about it too hard, you're probably thinking about it too much, right? But we can't help it. Well, yeah. Batman 677, you know, we're full steam ahead at this point. We're a third of the way through R.I.P. now. I think we're motivated to try to see this through and to substantively break it down as much as we can. You know, the theme that I think there it is, yeah, which is getting it's getting
Deluxe
a new
edition.
edition. Yeah, that's great.
I cannot wait. I'm definitely gonna pick that up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to as well. I didn't see that coming, but that was a nice surprise. But the theme of the sanity, you know, like it's explored in a relatively limited capacity here, but you ain't seen nothing yet, right? Because the cover here for 678 is depicting something very specific that we have absolutely touched on before in the Black Case book. And viewing that through a modern lens is not only fun, it's a little bit trippy. And this story is about to get a lot more trippy as we progress further and push through to the end. Really, the middle part of R.I.P. is the most insane and creative and disorienting.
I'm ready.
Part of R.I.P. You know,
I'm ready.
So we're getting into it. Well, let's jump over to critical reception of the time.
Question really quick before we go any further. Are we going to explore Battle for the Cowl? Is that part of this whole thing?
So Javi and I have chatted a little bit about this, and I am inclined to limit it to a high-level summary just to keep things moving. But if you guys think that it's worth I don't want to break down per issue.
I haven't read it.
So it's three, the core miniseries. There's a bunch of tie-ins to it, which are pretty useless in terms of forwarding the narrative. There's 3 issues. If we spent time if we did an episode breaking down each issue, they would be like 5 minutes long. There's not a lot.
Yeah, we can do a summary like we did with Black Case book, or something like that, where we just do like an overall summary of the essential parts to how it ties in with Grant Morrison's run. I think
my recollection, it's not really that essential.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's the only way that you could argue, I think, that it's essential, and I certainly wouldn't use that word to describe it, is that, the Morrison stories end at some point, and then when they pick up, clearly something happened in the middle, and the thing that happened in the middle apparently was Battle for the Cowl. But it doesn't have a lot of bearing on the story. I am currently kind of trying to decide what to summarize from other corners of the DCU as we go into Act 2 of Nights Never Die, because that's coming sooner rather than later. I mean, we got a lot of Final Crisis to get through, but it's in view. So I'll probably get in touch with you gentlemen and we can talk about that more
Okay.
specifically. At this
So,
point,
yeah.
I'm thinking just read the 3 issues. It's not a huge lift, right? You read the 3 issues and we can at least have a frame of reference to talk about what happened, but certainly
Okay.
not essential. But of course, if a viewer of Nights Never Die has a different perspective, leave a comment. And while you're leaving a comment, hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, subscribe if you haven't, and tell your friends about us. Preferably in the walls of a comic shop, right? That's always the best place to share good opinions about comic books. But let's jump over to critical reception of the time for Batman number 677. This one, honestly, as I was looking through the usual suspects that we typically go through on the show, a lot of people really loved this issue. Like it's not contained enthusiasm. Comic Book Revolution's review by Rock was very positive and even more effusive than some of the big issues of the run so far. He said, quote, Batman number 677 was just an amazing issue. Morrison delivers a story that is technically well written. This issue pretty much has everything that a story could ever possess. There's action, adventure, mystery, suspense, drama, madness, deceit, and impressive character work. There really isn't much more that a reader can ask from a comic book than what Morrison gives us in Batman 677. And that kind of reminds me about there's a particular moment in 677 near the end that I think is just like really it sums up everything that goes on in Batman's head at any given time so well. It's when he's talking to Jezebel and she's claiming to him, that I'm worried about your sanity. And he's talking about how I have 2 customized Cray mainframes running simultaneously, analyzing every scrap of data, looking for a pattern I know is there. Like the dead man's hand the Joker dealt me when I went to Arkham Asylum to ask him about the black glove. 2 8s, 2 aces. What's the 8th letter of the alphabet? Then think 8s and A's, 2 red and 2 black. Ha, H-A-H-A, ha ha. And each card has a specific fortune-telling significance and a whole range of numerological and Kabbalistic correspondences before we even get to color symbolism and folklore. And if I don't know all this stuff, if I miss a twist, if I can't match wits with any one of a dozen deeply disturbed, brilliant sadists, someone could die. How is that not a brilliant encapsulation of everything that's going on in Batman's head at any given time? Like when I read that line the first time, I was just like, okay, this is operating on a different level, I think. And this is actually giving service to not only Batman's fists, but his mental prowess in a way that I just hadn't really seen all that often before. So love that part. Anyway, back to critical reception time. IGN's review by Dan Phillips was kind of shockingly positive. He awarded this issue 9.6 out of 10, or amazing, under the IGN scale. And he said, quote, few writers would be capable of shaking up such an iconic and beloved mythology as Batman's without completely undermining it. But that's precisely what Morrison does, or begins to do, here. Morrison is navigating some seriously stormy waters with this type of massive upheaval, but I never once balked at one of his earth-shattering conspiratorial suggestions or clues, which speaks to both the sheer brilliance of this story premise and Morrison's ability to circle its central mystery in an understated manner. Yeah, well said. I mean, I'm not going to use the adage of like layers and layers and layers upon layers, or a Russian nesting doll of layers, but there's certainly an argument to be made that that's what's going on here. Finally,
You're muted, Chris. You said finally, and then that was it.
well, that's why. The BOF review for this issue sees Bill Jet Ramey return after handing the reins off last time to the great John Beerley. Bill seems cautiously optimistic about the lengths that Morrison is going to, and he says, quote, the bottom line question that we're dealing with now is whether or not Batman, make that Bruce Wayne, is crazy. Look, we all know that Bruce has got a few screws loose, right? But for the most part, dude's got it together. But now Morrison is hinting that Bruce has finally gone over the edge and is a damn psycho. All those bizarre, divergent storylines we've been reading since Morrison took over, they're all part of this mix. I certainly don't want to give too much away, but you know that saying that we are our own worst enemy, just keep that adage in mind. Trust me. I've also got to say that if Morrison ends up going where he seems to be going, it's going to rock the mythos of the Dark Knight harder than anything I've witnessed in my nearly 4 decades of reading Batman comics. And it's some serious, serious stuff here as Morrison looks to be messing with the very event that triggered the creation of the Batman. So, still aboard for the ride, and it sounds like generally pretty optimistic, but we'll see how things evolve as time goes on. But yeah, people really liked this issue. People liked this one, it seems, at least more than the prior issue, which is a little surprising to me. But because this one does forward the ball in kind of an interesting and unexpected way. But that first one, as far as like a first issue of a story that is trying to change things, is kind of perfect in my mind. So that's Batman 677, and that's part 2 of Batman R.I.P. So that's pretty much it for this episode of Knights Never Die. Gentlemen, am I missing anything? Is there any final words either of you have on Batman 677?
No, I think we did a good job breaking it down.
I think we did it justice, if I were to guess. Javi, where would you like to point people toward?
Oh, all over the place on YouTube. Up to Speed with Wally West is my obviously Wally West Flash show, breaking down his adventures on a month-by-month basis. BatmanOnFilm.com. I've got Batteries to Power, which is looking at season 1 of the Adam West Batman show, as we are in the 60th anniversary of that. I've made a few appearances on Discovery Debrief, talking about Starfleet Academy, which you should go check that show out and listen to Discovery Debrief, because it's an amazing crew that Chris has together over there, and I really love their insights, and it's an honor anytime I get to be a part of that. And of course, we've got Knights Never Die, and the 007 Files is a James Bond podcast I do with Bill Koenig and David Lee, and we break down any and all aspects of 007. We've had some recent interviews with the president of the British James Bond fan club. We've talked with soundtrack producer Neil S. Bulk, and just so much stuff coming down the pike with, obviously, they're making a new movie. We've got several new books that are coming out. And next month, they had to do it to me after this long drought of no console games since 2012. I finally get a next-gen James Bond game 5 days after the Ultimate Lego Batman game comes out. And there's just not enough time in the world to play them both.
Are all of you going to be playing First Light?
I mean, I am. Are you talking about my Bond podcast?
Your Bond podcast, folks?
Nah, just me, because they that's not their bag. They're a little bit older than me, and that's not their jam.
Well, I mean, they keep raising prices on consoles. I can't really blame them for not wanting to take the plunge, right?
Yeah, if that's your only game that you're interested in, that's a hefty investment.
It is indeed. Well, cool, man. No, that's great. And of course, you're always welcome on our bridge. In fact, if you're free tomorrow, let me know. Paul, what is coming down the pike on the comic binge for the devoted watchers?
Yes, Paul. What's coming down the pike?
We got Green Lantern Earth 1, Volume 1 and Volume 2 next week.
Oh, we're doing 1 and 2 next week?
We can do Volume 1 only. It's up to you guys. I'm almost done with Volume 2. So if you guys want to do it, but we can just do Volume 1 too. So either way, at least Volume 1. In prepping for our Lantern show, which our Lanterns show that's coming out, and it'll be more than obviously this, but this was the main apparently inspiration, which I have a lot of questions on, to be quite honest with you. But we got this next week, and then the next month we have, of course, Nights Never Die. Actually, before I forget, I do need to do we need to do a Dark Knight Returns retrospective, not a breakdown of the story, but let's kind of talk about its history with turning 40 years old. I'm going to be on the Batman book club soon, talking about the issue 2 of Dark Knight Returns, and where Carrie Kelly becomes Robin. And I have a lot of fondness for Carrie Kelly Robin and the Dark Knight Returns in general. But anyway, so I want to do a show of that next month sometime too. Doesn't have to be super long. So our arc is kind of our history with it. So when we eventually do a deep dive breakdown, we don't have to worry about, we don't have to spend time about, we like the story so much or whatever, our history with it. Let's over our history with it. And then also we'll be doing at some point next month, the Welcome Back Frank, to get us prepped for The Punisher, which is a story that I know Chris has wanted me to read for many, many, many years. And so I thought I had like a trade of that, honestly, Chris, at least like a part of it. And I realized I didn't. So buying the premiere edition was actually a great idea by my account. So I'm very glad I have it. So because I thought I had some of it and I realized I don't. So here I am. Anyway, yeah. So lots of great stuff next month.
Excellent. And we should probably at some point get together to talk about Superman, Spider-Man, both of them.
Eventually when I read them, yes.
Yeah. Sounds good. As for me, you can follow me on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, etc. If I'm there, which isn't often, but occasionally, at Chris Clow, CHRISCLOW. Check out Discovery Debrief, a Star Trek podcast, if you haven't before. As of the night we're recording this on April 22nd, we are planning on getting together tomorrow to break down the final 2 episodes of season 1 of Starfleet Academy. Quite a send-off for the show. And, the future of Star Trek isn't exactly bright, but we are focused on what's coming and until there's nothing left to focus on. And be sure to keep attuned to the Comic Binge for all the great discussions and comics that Paul and I have cooking up for you. And of course, the best way to stay in touch, like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends about us, all of the things. We appreciate whatever support you can give us. And by support, we literally just mean, a subscription that's free. We're not asking for money for anything. We're not on the Patreons. We're not on that stuff. We do this because we like doing it. We love these stories, and we just want to share perspectives with you folks. So come along for the ride with us if you can. Next time on Nights Never Die. Oh boy. Batman's mind goes on a vacation, and we get to see the beginning of that journey as he finds himself in unusual physical and mental environs. Until then, remember, Batman and Robin will never die.